Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we have got another video with 450 Bushmaster and the CVA Scout. This has a 25-inch non-threaded barrel, and we haven't really done a whole lot with it yet. In the first video with this gun, we set it up with a scope and shot some of the 225 grain FTX bullets. Those were going way too fast at the muzzle to hunt with within 50 or 100 yards or so. So I kind of scrapped these and we moved on to different bullets. I ended up switching to the Barnes 250 grain TTSX. That worked great, but we still don't have a lot of rounds through the barrel, and we haven't really seen what kind of accuracy it's capable of. So that's kind of the goal for today. I want to put probably between 20 and 50 more rounds through the barrel today with the 225 grain FTX. I've got a bunch of these bullets left, so we're going to shoot some through the 450 Bushmaster and see if they can be accurate out of this rifle. You may have noticed that I've mounted up a different scope on here. This is the Arken EP8 1 to 8x LPVO. I've been using this quite a bit lately, mostly on the 300 Blackout Ruger American, but I wanted to do some recoil testing to see how it holds up there, so we're going to be shooting with the EP8 on today. I did some scope switching and didn't have a great scope on this rifle, so I threw the Arken on and we'll see how it holds up. Now the 450 Bushmaster doesn't have a whole ton of recoil, but it should be a little bit more of a test of recoil durability than we've put it through so far. And this would actually probably be a pretty good match for a hunting scope for this gun. For brass, we're going to be using some once fired Starline brass. The primer is the CCI 450. I should have remembered that the Remington 7.5 is the preferred primer for the 450 Bushmaster, but I didn't when I primed this up. So the CCI 450 it is. It ought to work just fine. I did size all this with the Hornady sizing die. I expanded it with the Lee expander mandrel because it was already set. Then seated all the bullets with the Hornady bullet seating die and crimped with the Lee factory crimp die. So it's kind of nice that I have the two sets of dies, and I'll be honest, the one thing, I may have mentioned this in the last video when I was working on sizing this brass, but the one thing I like about Lee dies is the lock rings with the O-ring in, because you can keep an adjustment on them pretty easily without having to tighten a screw, and you can make small adjustments without having to loosen things up and tighten it all back down. You just give it a little twist, but it does hold fairly tight. So for the expanding die and the factory crimp die, I didn't have to do anything, just screwed them into the Hornady bushing here and they were all good to go. I do have the rounds loaded already for today. We are shooting H110 powder. On the last couple of 450 Bushmaster videos that I was using Lil Gun, I got several comments saying, why would you do that? Just use H110. It's a proven powder in 450 Bushmaster. Okay, we're gonna try it. I do have a bunch of Winchester 296, which is very similar, but we'll go with the actual H110 today. And there's what the cartridge looks like loaded up. Let's get out to the range and see how it shoots. All right, we're out here on the range. I don't think I mentioned a powder charge. I'm starting off 1/10 of a grain above Hodgdon's listed minimum, and that is at 40.5 grains of H110. I'm gonna take a few shots to get sighted in, and then after that, we'll shoot some groups. Tell you what, let me bore sight this first. The target is at 100 yards. I do have the Garmin chronograph set up here to capture velocities. Let's see if we're anywhere close. All right, I think I see that bullet hole. We're at 23.15 for a velocity. All right, take one more shot and see where we're at. .2402, pretty big spread from those two. 87.8 feet per second difference from the first shot to the second. That's not a good start. I'm gonna grab my spotting scope to put here on the bench, and that way I don't have to go down range a whole bunch. All right, the target camera should be up here, and you can definitely There's some other shots on the paper, but you can definitely tell which ones were from the 450 Bushmaster. That got us pretty darn close. I'm gonna make another adjustment though, and I'm just gonna come down. We'll go 3 clicks. Yeah, we'll just try that. And if this is anywhere close, we'll shoot a group. Oh, I forgot to put my earmuffs back on, but I had my plugs in still. We'll just leave the plugs. The earmuffs kind of rub on the stock, especially shooting pretty square behind it, and it gets a little tough. That shot was 24-22, so our extreme spread after 3 shots is now up to 107 feet per second. Nothing on the brass, of course. I've got 7 more shots left at this load, and we're gonna shoot them all. 24-29, velocity's still climbing. Tell you what, I need to get a different cartridge box because it's almost impossible to get these short cartridges out if they're not on the edge. Yeah, they're tracking left. That's all right. And back down to 23-83. So not very consistent on this load. That is for sure. Yeah, I could tell that one was fast again by the recoil, 24-17. That shot was 25.05. Nothing on the brass, it looks fine. But that's 100, we're up to 191 feet per second extreme spread. All right, so for that 10 shots, there's an average of 24-10, extreme spread of 191, standard deviation of 48 feet per second. I mean, take a look at the target and see what it looks like. Well, it looks like that group covers most of that sheet of paper. I'm gonna say at least an 8-inch group. Pretty terrible. Pretty terrible. I'm gonna let the gun cool all the way back down, and then we're gonna bump up by 1/2 grain and shoot 41 grains. I know you guys saw that happen in real time, but here's the target. The first shot was over here. Then I made an adjustment and it was here. I made one more adjustment and it started shooting over here. No big deal, but then we got shots from here to here. My muzzleloader with the rusted out barrel shoots better than that. Like, it shoots about half that. I'm gonna give the gun a little bit more time to cool down and we'll try again with a little bit higher charge weight. All right, the gun and the ammo have both been in the shade for a little while. I'm gonna put my plugs back in and we'll shoot a group with the 41 grain charge. I have a theory, I've heard this before about H110, that it requires a pretty full case of powder to shoot well, and that may be what's going on here. There is a little room left. The max charge according to Hodgdon, and again this is AR data because everything for 450 Bushmaster is, the max charge is 44.4 grains, so we're several grains below that. And that may be causing some issues, but we won't know until we try it. So this is 41 grains. Unless I'm mistaken, that shot is not on the paper. I'm gonna take one more. These rings and bases are torqued to Arkin specs, which are listed on the rings and bases. And the ring tops are Loctited. I believe those 2 shots, and I'll be able to see this on the replay, are above the top of the paper, which is possible, but I don't know how. The velocity is in the same range it was before. We're at 2,500 feet per second. Let me recheck the bore sight here and see if that's plausible. We're changing the load, so I'm not going to blame it on the scope. Except that I can tell it's off even bore sighting it. Centering the target in the bore, the crosshairs are below the bottom of the paper now. That is not good. I'm going to grab my fat wrench and double check the torque on everything to make sure I don't have screws that have loosened up. 18 inch-pounds, and we'll check the ring top screws first. Barely a budge out of any of those. We'll go to 30 inch-pounds. And we'll check the rail screws. Okay, we've got a tiny bit of movement on those, but they're certainly not loose. All right, let's get things re-zeroed, and we'll try again. This is why we test things. Let's see if anything moved there. No, doesn't seem to have moved. So what I'm going to do is put the crosshairs, or the center dot, on the center of the target. Get the rifle nice and stable. And then turn the dial up to the point of those two bullet holes that I'm pretty sure we were shooting into. Okay. Check on the bore sight. Seems to be much closer. Alright, I got 8 shots left with this load. I'm going to take 3 more, and then I'm going to check that bore sight again. Which is, of course, not exact, but I can I was on the target bore sighting it the first time, and I can get it pretty close to at least on the target with bore sighting it. So to see it that far off after 10 shots is not a good thing. .2451, velocity area is pretty close. And what do you know, we're back on target again. Almost dead center. I should have counted to see how many clicks I had to go to get it re-zeroed. Tell you what, let me take a quick check after just 1 shot. Yeah, seems pretty close still. After this shot, gonna give the barrel another cooling break. It's getting pretty warm. All right, gun and cameras are getting a break. We got 5 shots left, but everything's getting pretty warm. All right, gun is all the way cooled back down. We're gonna keep shooting here. Got 5 shots left. See if we can put together some sort of group. All right, for that 10 shots, we had an average of 24.85, extreme spread of 79.3, which is not good, but it's a heck of a lot better than the last one, and a standard deviation of 30 feet per second. And that actually was shaping up to be not too bad of a group. That first shot after I moved the scope was in a different spot than the rest of them, which is concerning, but it is still zeroed and put together, not a bad little group there. I'll measure that when we're all done. I'm going to chalk that first little bit of weirdness up to the rings settling in after they were moved from another rifle. I torqued everything back down. There was a tiny bit of movement, so there's a possibility something could have gone wrong there. We're gonna keep plugging away here. What I'm gonna do next is get the rifle in the shade, and I'm gonna load 10 rounds up at 42 grains. That group was 41 grains. We're gonna go to 42. See if we can get that case a little bit more full and see if the extreme spread improves. I've got 10 rounds loaded up with 42 grains of H110. We'll see how they shoot. Probably do 5 shots, take a break, and shoot the next 5. Not a good sign starting out that we're so far off. Bore sight still seems to be dead on, so we're probably moving around from the load. That first shot was 25-30. All right, let's take a cool down. We're gonna finish this out, at least for right now. 5 more shots with the 42 grain load. That one jumped up over 2,600 feet per second. Nothing on the brass. We're off the paper again. Bore sight still looks exactly dead on. So, scope's not moving. Putting my elbow up on a box because it's there's a splinter on the table my elbow keeps hitting under recoil. Yeah, this group is still migrating up though. Thankfully you can still see where the shots are going on the cardboard. All right, we got an average of 25.46, an extreme spread of 126 feet per second, standard deviation of 40. Still, we have crap. I want to be done shooting this. I don't think my shoulder is gonna handle too much more. We've already gone through 30 rounds of 450 Bushmaster, and that's a lot. But I think what I need to do to verify that the scope is holding 0, because the bore sight thing is just an estimate, I'm gonna go load 5 more rounds at 41 grains back where we were and make sure it's still hitting the same spot it was the last time we shot 41 grains. So I'm gonna do that. I'll be right back. Okay, I'm gonna leave the same target up, and I've got 5 shots loaded up at the 41 grain load. I'm gonna take a quick check just to make sure no screws have come loose. Just like I did last time. Okay, nope, not a tiny bit of budge on any of the ring screws, nor on the base screws. That is good. So this will be a test to tell us if the scope itself is holding 0. And I think I've eliminated all the other variables. We're back to the same load. So this should be shooting about an inch or 2 high and an inch or 2 to the right. I may not shoot all 5. Just enough to find out if it's still hitting where it should. All right, I believe all 3 of those shots are pretty close together, and they are 2 to 2.5 inches high. Let me look. Yeah, okay. So they weren't as far to the right as I thought. That's about where that load was hitting before. Good, that's excellent. The scope is holding 0. That's good. All right, folks, it's actually been about a week since the last clip you just saw. We were back out on the range with the 450 Bushmaster. It was looking like the point of impact was not holding. I thought it was in that last clip, but you saw the message up on the screen. I wasn't seeing exactly where those shots were going. So I've got a fresh target up today. We're gonna leave the scope settings exactly the same and shoot another group of 5 with the 41 grain charge of H110. If I don't get some conclusive results right now, I'm gonna switch to factory ammo, and I'll probably shoot a test with that factory ammo anyway. I've got, I think, 16 rounds of the Hornady Black stuff. So yeah, let's see what happens here. exactly sure what's going on, whether it's the scope, the load, or both. So we're gonna start eliminating some variables. I did notice last time that when we had some really erratic shots, the velocity was also pretty erratic. Like one shot was clear up to 2,600 feet per second. And that shot, for whatever reason, went way low right. So I am gonna keep the chronograph out just to track that sort of thing. But I wanna make sure the scope's holding 0, and I wanna make sure I give the best representation of that to you guys that I can. So where I was expecting this is just a couple inches high. The last group was shooting way, way high. If it stays there, that's okay, I guess, as long as we can get it zeroed and it holds a 0. I'll just see what happens. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that shot is exactly at the top of the paper, and it was at 2511. Man, that's about how much I had to adjust for it being off last time. I did check at the end of last shooting session and all the screws were still tight, so that's not it. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make one scope adjustment. And I came down 4.5 MOA there. So we're gonna see what happens. Something is going screwy and I'm not sure exactly what it is. Okay, that shot went low, but that's okay. I think it's in a spot where if we group there, it's gonna keep it on the paper. We're back to an extreme spread of 129 feet per second. I think I'm gonna have to change the primer. I'm not 100% sure about that. All right, I'm gonna go have a look at that group in person before I say anything about it, because I was certainly wrong last time. So between the 3-inch group and an extreme spread of 150 feet per second for 5 shots, I don't think this load is consistent enough to test the scope with. I want to be as fair as I can. So I'm going to break out the Hornady black ammo, and we're going to shoot that. I do that a little bit reluctantly because this stuff is expensive. It's like 40 bucks a box on the cheap end. I will reset the chronograph, and we're going to take a group with this and see how it does. I hope it does better. This is the 250 grain FTX, which is a bullet designed for 450 Bushmaster. Let's see, what does the box say? Box says muzzle velocity of 2,200 feet per second. I don't know what length barrel they were testing that out of. We got 23, 27, and a fairly close to center impact. Let's see how this load does. I'm going to give it a few minutes in between each shot to keep the barrel from heating up too much. Regardless of all the scope adjustments we have made before, this is the first time I've shot this ammo. So when I consider the stability of the point of impact with the scope, I'm not going to take into account the previous adjustments because I don't know where this load would have been hitting in relation to those other loads. So this is number 1 for that purpose. All of these cases have been pretty smoky around the mouth. All right, can't tell what it looks like through the scope, so I will go down there and check the target. For those 5 shots, we had an average of 2378, extreme spread of 90, standard deviation of 30. All right, not great, but not too bad either. Shrunk that group up by an inch. We're looking at probably 2 inches down there, which is plenty acceptable. 3 of the shots in a nice little clover leaf. We're gonna give 10 minutes to let the barrel cool down, and then I'm gonna shoot 5 more into that same group. I wanna be sure the scope's not shifting around before I give a report on it. All right, it's been 10 minutes. The barrel has sufficiently cooled. Let's take another 5-shot group right on top of the first. All right. Those last few shots, the spread was tighter. We're still at a total of 90 feet per second for extreme spread, average of 2387, so kind of right where we were before. I'm gonna go take a look at that target and see what's going on there. All right, let's just wrap up out here. There's probably not a whole lot of reason to take this into the bench. 9 of those shots went into, looks like about 1.25 inches center to center there. That's just an estimation. I don't have a tape measure out here. It doesn't really matter. That's good enough. There was one shot outside here, but not sure what happened there. But I think that was in the first couple with this load. So anyway, this gun will shoot, just not with the 225 FTX. That's good to know. It's probably not a bullet that I was going to use for hunting anyway, but we could just go ahead and use this Hornady Black ammo to hunt with. I'm a hand loader. I don't want to do that. So I think I'm going to bite the bullet and order some of these 250 grain FTXs to test with. I want a good hand load that we can shoot out of this rifle. Now, the 250 grain Barnes, I'm going to do a recheck on that. I may stick with that bullet, but I kind of like the idea of having an FTX that I know will expand out to further distances. I think that's where we're going to leave things for this video. Unfortunately, nothing good with the hand loads, but we did accomplish the mission of getting a bunch more shots down the barrel. Shot a total of 50 rounds. I'm going to clean this thing, and we're going to start some more testing later. The other thing we found out is that the EP8 does hold zero just fine, and the trouble I was having seemed to be 100% related to this gun just not liking that load. Whether it was the primer, the bullet, the powder, or the combination of the three, I'm not sure. But the EP8 holds zero, even under heavier recoil, and that's what I wanted to make sure of. Thank you guys so much for sticking with me to the end of the video. I really appreciate it. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. I'm going to keep messing around and doing stuff like this for the foreseeable future. So thanks again for watching. Y'all have a good one.